Nothing bugging you? Come on in. Let's go for a drive.
Jon Noyes, thank you for joining me for another episode of What's Bugging You here with Roscoe. So glad that you're with us.
I'm glad to be here.
I would really just like to hear a bit of your story.
Sure.
And what convinced you to become a Christian?
Yeah, that's a good question. The way I usually say it is my story starts as all good stories do with I met a girl. My now wife, Rihanna. I had just moved from Washington, D.C. to Los Angeles, California. And I actually met her my first night in California. I was at this party. And my wife, I didn't know who she was, Rihanna, she walked in the front door of this party and she wanted to come talk to me. I was standing on the balcony that overlooked all of LA. She walked like full force across the room, and she smacked into a screen door. And like she had me right then and there, man. She bumped into this door and fell on her bottom and laughed, and I just was like right then and there. And we got to know each other. And then she came out as a Christian to me, which was like, sorry, the worst news that anybody could say.
You were not a Christian.
I was so far from being a Christian. I was an atheist, a pretty ardent atheist. I was vociferous. I loved to argue my atheist positions with Christians especially. And I thought Christians were stupid. I thought they were intellectually irresponsible. I thought some of their views were dangerous. And I let them know that. If I found, I want to talk to you about these things and tell you why I thought you were wrong if you were a Christian. And so when Rihanna, once we started dating, when she kind of came out as a Christian, it wasn't good. And I used to make, like, just poke fun at her and ask her hard questions sometimes, but really be an antagonistic person towards her. And eventually, actually, I'm really proud of her. She was really brave. She asked me to go to church with her, which was crazy. But I've done crazier things with the affections of a woman. So I went to church with her on Sunday, and it was super strange and weird. I'd never been to church really before, ever. So I had no experience. It was a charismatic church. So, you know, there was a woman spinning during worship, and then there was people prophesying in tongues. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is worse than I thought. But I took the opportunity to kind of observe the Christians in their natural habitat, you know, and take notes, and so I could better convince them how stupid their beliefs are. And part of Rihanna's journey, like, she was at kind of a low point in her faith when she met me, and so God was kind of pulling her back up, and she wanted to become a member of this church eventually. So I went to membership classes with her, and during those membership classes, you have to meet with the pastor and his wife. So we went in, and I went in with all of my questions, like all the hard questions. And I had in my mind that I was gonna convince this pastor out of Christianity and show him that he needs to see the light and he needs to evolve, you know, and drop it. And so I asked him my questions. A lot of the times he said, I don't know. So some of the questions he offered answers. And at the end of the meeting, they hug Rihanna, and Rihanna, they offer membership too. And then Pastor Dave, he takes my hand in his, and he's shaking it. He's like, you know what, Jon? Thanks for coming. We have enough members right now, though, you know? And and I was like, this is awesome. Like, because a lot of people think, oh my gosh, he was so mean, right? How could he do that? He was a pastor. Yeah. But he was being consistent, and that I had a lot of respect for. And if he had said at that moment, if he was like, you know, we'll work on you, Jon, you're a work in progress, you know, you'll come around, I'd be like, oh, this is just rubbish. Like, it's exactly what I thought.
Really mean what you,
yeah, you don't really believe what you say you believe, you have no reason for it, you don't care what I believe, you just want my butt in your seat, my buck in your coffer. And so I respected that. But then at the end of that meeting, that pastor, he gave me a book, and it was a book on Christian apologetics, and I had never read it before, anything on Christian apologetics, really. So he said, hey, I know I didn't do a great job probably answering a lot of your questions, but I think you might find the beginnings of some of your questions in this book. Would you read it? And I said, yeah, sure. Like, I'll read it. And I did. I read it a couple times, and I read some more Christian apologetics. And then around the same time, my future in-laws, they gave me a New Believer's Bible. And I read that cover to cover over the course of 3 months. And I had that interaction with the Word of God. I had that interaction with Christian apologetics, where everything was starting to get softened. My intellect was getting softened. My heart was being softened. And there were 3 areas, mainly, that affected me that I remember. Like, there's actually more, but the 3 that for this short video, right?
Yeah.
One was the existence of the world, like where'd everything come from? You know, I thought I could explain it on naturalism, but like what caused the beginning of the universe? I couldn't explain that, because on naturalism is the idea that everything that exists is the product of a purely physical process. So all I had to start with at the beginning was nothing.
Right.
And there's only two options when answering the question, what caused the beginning of the universe? It's either something or nothing. Right?
If there was nothing, how does nothing cause something to come from it?
And that put me in a really hard position as an atheist.
Sure.
As an atheist, all I had was the nothing option. So but I didn't want to say the something option either, because the moment you say something, it starts to look like something specific.
Yeah.
So outside of time and space, it has to be immensely creative, incredibly powerful. It starts to look like God. But I couldn't, so I was in a dilemma, and I couldn't explain on my worldview, but Christian theism offered an explanation, an uncaused cause, that lines up with reality, the way the world really is, right? Reality is the way the world really is. And it's what we bump into when we don't live according to it. So I was bumping into this facet of reality that I couldn't explain where all the stuff came from. And it wasn't just one, like, it's not just one, right? There's lots of stuff that's happening in my life. What I call the bump of bad. I knew certain things were wrong, like what happened in Nazi Germany was wrong.
Yeah.
But what did I mean when I said that it was wrong? I meant that it was actually wicked, like we shouldn't do it. You know, I was appealing to a standard more than just my personal opinion, which is all I had on my naturalism.
Right. You weren't just saying that you don't like it. You were saying that it was actually wrong. You knew that it was actually wrong. So
yes.
How do you realize if something's wrong? Right.
Yeah,
okay.
you have no standard, right? You don't sin against the particles, right? And on atheism, human beings were just a random quantification of molecules bumping into each other. That's what we are. Just read the atheists, right? Dawkins said that there's nothing but pitiless indifference, you know, at the end. We're just dancing to our DNA, is what he says, you know. And Thomas Hobbes says life is solitary, poor, brutish, and nasty, and Leviathan. You know, so these are the standards that I had to lean on to answering some of these questions when I was experiencing the world. I knew certain things were wrong. And what I meant by that is it's more than just my personal preferences. I had no standard. But Christian theism does have that standard. So that's the second one. The third one, just briefly, is what I call, it's actually called the bump of me, and it's the soul. And in combination with the bump of bad, this is really what kind of wrecked me, because I knew people were special, they were valuable, but I didn't know what that thing was that made people special. What makes us more valuable than cockroaches? You know, I knew that to be true, but I couldn't justify it on my position. So I know souls are real, for example. I knew that it's that thing that you introspect to. You're constantly aware of it, every waking moment. So I knew it's real. But not only do I know it's real, I knew souls are special, and that gets back to the idea that we as human beings are special creatures. We're extraordinary creatures, you know. And then you combine that, and then this is where everything kind of got tied off for me. Not only are souls real, not only are souls special, souls, they're broken. Like, I knew, like, combined with the existence of moral depth of the reality, I knew not only was the brokenness out there, Nazi Germany, but I knew the brokenness was in here. I knew that I wasn't just a victim. Right. I was a victimizer. Yeah. And I was in need of forgiveness. I was in need of rescue. And what kind of rescue, what kind of forgiveness is offered through naturalism? Nothing. There's no forgiveness on naturalism. But on Christian theism, there is forgiveness. There's forgiveness that's outside of ourselves altogether. There's forgiveness in the person and work of Jesus Christ. And so when you kind of tie all these things together, that's really where that's where my journey led me. It started with a girl. I met a girl who bumped into a screen door, and then I bumped into reality. You know, and as I chased answers to life's most important questions, I eventually I literally was sitting there empty-handed. And I had all of these questions that I thought that I knew the answers to, and I'd raised them to Christians, and they could never answer them for me, so I thought my naturalism was right. But at the end of the day, when I started actually looking for these answers, my atheism left me empty. And Christian theism offered these great answers to me. And and I'm a Christian ultimately. You asked, like, what caused you to be a Christian? I'm not a Christian because it makes me feel good. I'm not a Christian because it's gained me anything. It hasn't. I'm a Christian because it's true. Yeah. You know? That's why I'm a Christian. I'm a Christian because it's the true story of reality. Excuse me.
Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you.
That's wonderful. And thank you for spending some time with me and Roscoe today.
I love Roscoe and you.
Oh, thanks.
You're made in the image of God, though. Roscoe,
Roscoe, not
almost,
quite.
Almost there. Right?
Keep working on it,
Keep
Roscoe.
working on
Maybe
it,
we'll get
Roscoe.
there.
It's not his fault.